I can just have it with the clerk now. Yes. I think so. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Are we ready to bring in the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Just slightly because I can't see you. Thank you.
Would counsel stipulate, please?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Good
Yes.
morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
We continue with the state's case.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. The state recalls Kristen Maydell.
And you are still under oath, Ms. Maydell. You may be seated.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Excuse me.
Sure, it's Kristen, Kristen, Maydell, Madel.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Ms. Maydell, just before we get started, I'm going to hand you some exhibits which have been pre-marked for identification purposes. Specifically, I'm going to be handing you State's Exhibits 19 through 26, as well as 29 for identification. And I'm also going to be handing you states 112 for identification and 117 through 121 for identification purposes. Ms. Maydell, are those all reports that you authored in connection with this case?
Yes.
Now, you were with us last time discussing certain DNA results from evidence recovered from 69 Wells Lane, a 2014 Range Rover, and a 2017 Chevrolet Suburban. Did you conduct additional analysis in this case?
I did.
And that analysis that you did was on evidence which was submitted to the State Forensic Laboratory in accordance with standard laboratory protocols, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, prior to receiving some of this evidence, it was actually analyzed by different units of the forensic laboratory, including the latent print unit as well as the forensic biology unit, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, before we discuss the additional analysis that you did, I'd like to talk to you now about nuclear DNA and mitochondrial DNA. To begin with, what is nuclear DNA?
Nuclear DNA is DNA that's unique to an individual. It's found in the nucleus part of the cell. If you think of it as like an egg, the yellow part of an egg would be where the nucleus is, and your DNA, nuclear DNA is located there. You get half your nuclear DNA from your mother, half your nuclear DNA from your father.
And conversely, what is mitochondrial DNA?
Well, mitochondrial DNA is also found in the cell, but it's found in the white part of the cell. It's found in the mitochondrial organelles that are in the white part of the cell. I think previously I misspoke in my old testimony, first testimony, that mitochondrial DNA is on the X chromosome, which it's not, it's found in the mitochondrial. And this type of DNA is inherited maternally, so you get this DNA from your mother. So my mother has the same mitochondrial DNA as myself, and I pass that same mitochondrial DNA on to my children. So this is not unique to an individual.
What are the differences between nuclear DNA and mitochondrial DNA in terms of its ability to discriminate between individuals?
So nuclear DNA is unique to an individual besides identical twins, whereas mitochondrial DNA is not, because you have it in the same maternal line.
The last time you were here, we discussed nuclear DNA results, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
But you also did mitochondrial DNA testing in this case.
I did, yes.
And the analysis that we're going to discuss today actually addresses both of those different types of analysis depending on which item you looked at, correct?
Correct, yes.
I wanted to talk to you about the basics of DNA, specifically what types of things can destroy DNA or contaminate DNA potentially. Can water destroy DNA on a surface or make it harder to detect?
It can wash it away. Bleach is known to destroy DNA, UV light, but water can wash DNA away if it's poured on top of where DNA may have been left.
Can shampoo destroy DNA or make it harder to detect?
It's possible. Again, it would do the same effect as just water washing it away or getting rid of the DNA that may have been there.
Can wiping a surface either destroy or remove DNA?
Yes, again, it's possible. If you have a spill on the counter from juice or something and you wipe it away to that paper towel, it goes onto the paper towel. So same thing can happen if you wipe a surface with DNA, it could get onto the paper towel and then you could remove it.
How about vacuuming an area?
Same concept. Yep, you could possibly remove it from the surface.
Does the amount of time that DNA is on an object also influence whether or not it can be detected by your equipment?
Yes, of course. If it's there, if you leave DNA and then try and swab it and detect it right away, you might have a better result than if you wait a week or two.
And why is that?
because it could get wiped away, it could degrade from the environment, you just would lose that DNA.
Now, when a DNA profile is developed, is it possible to tell whether or not the profile came from blood, saliva, skin cells, or any other source?
No, we cannot say that.
And just to refresh the jury's memory, you spoke with us last time about STR-mix. What is that?
STAR-Mix is the software that is used to help the DNA analyst interpret that DNA profile and give a statistical calculation to the weight of that evidence.
Now, I want to direct your attention to 2019 and the initial analysis that you conducted in this case. What DNA kit was the laboratory using at that point?
We were using for amplification, we were using a Fusion 6C amplification kit.
And what DNA kit does the laboratory use now?
Currently, we use the Global Filer STR amplification kit, which is just a different company.
What are the differences between the two kits?
The two kits have a couple of different sites that the Fusion had a few more sites that the Global Filer kit does not have.
And so how can that influence or impact a DNA analysis?
So since all the evidence was processed with that Fusion 6C kit originally, most of it, some subsequent testing was done with Global Filer and evidence, but the original evidence that was done in 2019, 2020 was done with the Fusion kit, which had 27 sites and 23 of them were used to perform statistical analysis if you had a match. Currently, the Global Filer kit has 24 sites with only 21 sites being used for statistics. So if you compare a new known that was done with the new kit, Global Filer, and only has 21 sites to use to compare to the original Fusion kit, you can only use those 21 sites. So therefore, those two sites that you had information and the evidence are not used for the statistical calculation.
Now, did you receive two separate known DNA samples from the defendant, Michelle Troconis, in this case?
I did, yes.
And the first one was received in 2019,
Yes,
and the second one was received in 2023, correct?
that is correct, yes.
And so did you generate a profile from the known DNA samples in both instances?
I did, yes.
And did you do an analysis of the second known profile against the evidence that had already been tested?
Yes, I wrote reports for the first comparisons when I compared her first known to all the evidence, and then in 2023, when her known was reprocessed with the new kit, I then went back and compared the new results of that known to all the previously done evidence.
Now, the new kit that you referred to is called what?
Global Filer?
And Global Filer has less testing sites than Fusion 6 did.
Yes.
Now, in addition to the two known samples that you received from the defendant, can you just refresh the jury's memory as to who else you received known samples from?
I received known samples from Otis Dulos, Lauren Almeida, the swabbing of the electric toothbrush used as a pseudo-known, Pavel Bumeni, and the 5 Dulos children.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention now to some of the specific analysis that you did and some of the results. Judge, if I may just have permission again to use my computer and be seated for the examination.
Yes.
And I'm just going to I'm just going to begin by publishing the stipulation again, Your Honor. Paragraph 10 of State's Exhibit 103 State Police Exhibit 502K, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as 4 pieces of black plastic garbage bag with duct tape attached to 2 pieces, contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 88. And, Your Honor, I'm going to open up and display to the jury State Trial Exhibit 111A. Specifically a folder entitled State Police Exhibit 502K, Lab Submission 88. And there's a subfolder 88-3, which I'm opening, and I'm going to display the photograph 88-3S7. And Ms. Maydell, just for your benefit, I believe this is encompassed in DNA Supplemental Reports 4, 9, and 18. Excuse me. I apologize, 5, 10, and 18. So I'd like to discuss with you now, there was a swabbing which was done by Ms. Velonis, identified as 88-3S7. Did you have an opportunity to do a DNA analysis on that particular swabbing?
Yes, I did.
And what were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-3S7 being a mixture of 4 contributors, with at least 2 of them being male. Assuming 4 contributors, the DNA profile from 88-3S7 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown individuals. In assuming 4 contributors, the DNA profile from 88-3S7 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from Dulos and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown individuals. Assuming 4 contributors, the DNA profile from item 88-3S7 is at least 780,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from Michelle Troconis and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown individuals.
And did you also have an opportunity you indicated that you received 2 separate knowns from the defendant,
Yes,
and you, I guess, reanalyzed the evidence using the second known with the second kit. Is that correct?
the original evidence was not reanalyzed, but the comparison was done to the new known, which had 2 less sites.
Okay.
Yes.
And what were the results for that particular analysis with respect to the defendant?
Assuming 4 contributors, the Fusion 6C DNA profile from item 88-3S7 is at least 250,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from Michelle Troconis and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown individuals.
So I'd like to talk to you now about the differences in those 2 stats. In the first analysis that you did, it was 780,000 times more likely, and in the second, 250,000 times more likely. Can you explain how that's possible, and is that first stat still valid?
Both stats are valid. It's just, as I said before, when we switched to this new kit with the new known that was submitted last year, 2023, it had 2 less testing sites to use for statistical calculations. So therefore, when I compared the new known to the original evidence that had more data, I can't use those two sites because I don't have data from the known. So when you do the statistical calculation, you're losing those two sites when you're doing basically the product rule. So if you have 2 times 2 times 2, 21 times, 2 times 2 versus 23 times, you're obviously going to have a higher number with those 2 extra times that you're multiplying the numbers out.
And did you also do an analysis as to the Dulos children as well as Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumieni?
Yes, I did.
And that's found in DNA supplemental report number 10 for your benefit. What were the results of that?
First, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumieni were both eliminated as possible contributors to that 4-person mixture. When comparing all 5 children, they were all at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if they originated from individually each of those children and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown individuals.
So Ms. Maydell, does that mean that the children touched this bag or that it is in fact the children's DNA?
I can't say who touched the bag for any of these conclusions. All I can say is looking at this 4-person mixture, it appears that the 2 major contributors that are contributing to this 4-person mixture are contributing about the same amount, so approximately the same amount from both of those 2 major contributors. And if those 2 major contributors are the parents of these children, you get half your DNA from your mother and half your DNA from your father. So if your parents' DNA is all there, of course you're going to have your profile be there, your types be there, because both your parents are contributing to that profile.
I'd like to talk to you about the remainder of the 88-3 DNA results, if I could, specifically beginning with 88-3S1. And for the remainder of these, Ms. Maydell, those will be found in supplemental reports 4, 9, and 18 for your benefit. So
Okay.
beginning with 88-3S1, which was identified as a swabbing of a knot area by Ms. Valonis, what were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 88-3S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 88-3S1 is at least 26,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Fotis Dulos could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 88-3S1. And Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 88-3S1.
And we're, in supplemental number 9, were Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumieni eliminated as well?
Yes, that is correct. They were both eliminated.
And with respect to the children, what were the results?
Sorry, which report is that?
DNA supplemental report number 9.
Oh, that's also 9. All 5 children had low likelihood ratios calculated, so they are inconclusive as to whether they can be contributors to this profile, 88-3S1.
And since it's displayed in the photograph, I wanted to jump ahead to 88-3S5. Which was identified as a hair-like fiber in the knot of the bag. You performed mitochondrial DNA analysis on this. I believe it can be found in your report DNA supplemental report number 12.
Yes.
And can you just indicate to the jury what the results were?
So for this hair, I attempted to get nuclear DNA from the hair, and I was not successful. There was no nuclear DNA detected. So because of that, we then went to the hair shaft and tried to get mitochondrial DNA profile from that hair. So which I did obtain a full mitochondrial DNA profile from 88.3S5. So the mitochondrial DNA sequence from 88.3S5 and 7G1 are the same. Therefore, the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush cannot be excluded as a source of 88.3S5. I feel like I should explain that conclusion a little bit more because I don't think we talked about how mitochondrial DNA conclusions are different than nuclear.
Sure.
Since it's not unique to an individual and it's through the same maternal line, we say if two profiles match in the mitochondrial, that they can't be excluded as coming from the same source or anybody in that maternal line. So a little bit different for mitochondrial DNA sequencing versus looking at those repeats that I talked about last time, where we were looking at, say, 4 letters, A, G, T, T, repeated 9, 10 times. That gives you your type. For mitochondrial DNA, you're looking at the actual order of those bases. So say you have the letter CAT, that spells cat. If you rearrange those letters and you do ACT, that is act. So those two do not match. They're two different profiles. So that's mitochondrial DNA. That's what we're actually looking at, is the order of the bases to see if they match. And then we say, if they do match, they cannot be excluded. And then we search the database of all these profiles to see how common or rare that profile is. It's a more of a frequency estimate versus a likelihood ratio. So after I made the conclusion that 88.3S5 and the profile from 7G1, the toothbrush, are a match, I then searched the database to see how common or rare that sequence is. We typically report the 3 major ethnic groups in Connecticut unless there's a match within another ethnic group, and then we report all those statistics. So I'll read those now. So in the African American population, I wouldn't expect to see this profile in more than 0.32% of the population. In the Caucasian population, 1.33% of the population. Hispanic, 0.42% of the population. Asian, 0.46% of the population. And Native American, 0.62% of the population. Now, in comparing that profile from 88.3S5 to the mitochondrial DNA profile from Jennifer Dulos, Michelle Troconis, Lauren Almeida, and Pavel Gumeni, they're all excluded as being a possible source of that profile from the hair. I could also explain that we didn't test the children's mitochondrial DNA because it was irrelevant because we have the mitochondrial DNA profile from the toothbrush, and it would have been the same.
Yeah, and speaking of the toothbrush, just to refresh the jury's memory, you did a parental analysis on the toothbrush to determine the likelihood that the profile on the toothbrush was related to Petros Dulos. Is that correct?
Correct. I made a maternity-paternity stat to the toothbrush to one of the children to show, yes.
And I don't want to misquote, but I think it was something like 8 billion times more likely to be the mother of Petros Dulos.
It was something around that, yes. I don't know if I have that report here with me.
Okay. I believe it's DNA supplemental report 16.
16, let's see. Yes. Yes, the expected frequency of individuals who could be the parent of Petros Dulos is less than 1 in 8.1 billion people in the general population.
And I wanted to go back to 88.3S7 for a second, if I could. This was the result in which you concluded that the defendant was 780,000 times more likely to be a contributor or 250,000 times more likely to be a contributor, depending on which kit you used. And I know you indicated that you can't tell us how DNA got onto a particular object. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
But I want you to assume the following facts are true. I want you to assume that the defendant in her third interview with police indicated to them that she held a bag open for Mr. Dulos as he deposited something in the bag. Is it possible that her DNA could have gotten on the bag as she was holding it?
Yes, that's possible. We know that if you come in contact with something, it is possible for you to leave your own DNA behind on an item.
Now I'm going to display in this folder, which is State Police Exhibit 502K Lab Submission 88, Subfolder 88-3. There was additional swabbing, specifically 88-3S2 and 88-3S3. 88-3S2 was identified as a reddish-brown staining on the exterior, and 88-3S3 was identified as a reddish-brown staining on the exterior, both approximate areas of swabbing displayed in this particular photograph. What were the results for these two particular swabs? And this can be found in DNA reports 4, 9, and 18.
(88-3S2), the results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-3S2 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 88-3S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from one unknown individual.
And were all other known profiles eliminated?
Yes, all other known profiles eliminated.
And then with respect to 88-3S3, the reddish-brown staining on the exterior, was that the same result?
That is not number 4. Is that 88-3S3?
Yes.
Yes, same results, single female individual. Yes,
Okay, so 100 billion times more likely to originate from the profile generated from the toothbrush, and all other known individuals were eliminated?
correct, yes.
And then on this same item, 88-3S4, I'm displaying that photograph, Lab 88.3S4, and this was identified as exposed sticky sides of duct tape.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 88-3S4 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 88-3S4 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual than if it came from 2 unknown individuals. Fotis, Dulos, and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to item 88-3S4.
And as were all other known individuals, is that correct?
That is correct. Lauren, Almeida, Paul, Gumeni, and all 5 children were eliminated.
And I'm going to go to State Trial Exhibit 109 now. And I'm going to open a folder entitled State Police Exhibit 502U, Lab Submission 41. And I'm going to publish paragraph 12 of that same stipulation. State Police Exhibit 502U, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one black plastic garbage bag tied in a knot containing a shirt and bra with blood-like substance contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 41. So I'm opening State Trial Exhibit 109 folders, State Police Exhibit 502U, Lab Submission 41. And Ms. Maydell, for your benefit, this can be found in your very first DNA report, as well as supplemental reports 1, 9, and 18. And I'm displaying the photograph, Lab 41.1 exterior front.
Sorry, so you said 41, 1S1?
Correct. That is identified as a portion of a reddish-brown stain from the shirt. What were the results?
So in the first report, it was only compared to the swabbing of the electric toothbrush. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 41, 1S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 41, 1S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals.
And then in supplemental reports 1, 9, and 18, would it be fair to say that all other known profiles were eliminated as being contributors to that particular profile?
Yes, that is correct. Everyone else was eliminated.
And I'm going to display a photograph entitled Lab 41.2 exterior front. Excuse me, strike that. I'm going to display Lab 41.2. Specifically 41.2S1, which was identified as a portion of reddish-brown stain from bra. And this can be found for your benefit, Ms. Maydell, in supplemental reports 2, 9, and 18. Can you just indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 41.2S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from 41-2S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to 41.2S1.
And then with respect to supplemental report number 9, the results were inconclusive as to the Dulos children, is that correct?
That is correct, and Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gimini are also eliminated as contributors.
And just sticking with this particular submission, 41.3. And specifically the swabbing 41.3S2. And this was identified as a swabbing of the knot interior. What were the results? And this is found in 2, 9, and 18.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 41.3S2 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from 41.3S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. The results do not support the hypothesis that Fotis Dulos is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 2 contributors, Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to item 41.3S2. The same conclusion for Michelle Troconis. The results do not support the hypothesis that she's a contributor Assuming two contributors, Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to 41-3S2.
And with respect to the children, were the results that it was inconclusive as to whether or not they could be contributors to the profile?
That is correct.
And Pavel Gumieni and Lauren Almeida were eliminated.
Yes, the results did not support the hypothesis that they were contributors. They were also eliminated.
And just to refresh the jury's recollection, when you're saying that a result is inconclusive, what exactly does that mean?
That means that when we perform our likelihood ratio statistic, the number generated is above our elimination threshold, but below our threshold to say that it's a positive association. So we say no comparison, no conclusion can be made for that comparison.
I'm going to direct your attention now to 41-3-31S1 or 31S1, identified as a reddish-brown stain on the panty liner found within that particular submission. Did you get any results?
No DNA profile was generated from that sample.
Okay. And how about 41-3-1S2, which was a swabbing of the absorbent side of that particular panty liner?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 41-3-1S2, originated from a single individual. Due to the limited data detected from 41-3-1S2, the comparison to the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is inconclusive. Due to the limited data detected from that same item, the comparison to Dulos is inconclusive. Michelle Troconis is eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 41-3-1S2.
And is it also fair to say in DNA supplemental report number 9, you concluded that Lauren Almeida, Pavel Gumieni, Petros Dulos, and Noel Dulos were eliminated as well?
Correct. And due to the limited data detected, the comparison to Constantine, Christiane, and Theodore are also inconclusive.
I want to just read a stipulation, paragraph 13 of State's Exhibit 103. State Police Exhibit 154, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Michael Butin on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one FedEx envelope, color white, containing 2 altered Connecticut license plates, seized from the scene storm drain at 1344 Albany Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut. It was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 96. So I'm opening up State Trial Exhibit 109, the folder, State Police Exhibit 154, Lab Submission 96. And I'm just going to display this. Lab 96, 1S1. These were photographs that it came to your attention that these particular license plates and the FedEx envelope that contained them were in a sewer drain. Is that correct?
Yes, that was in the description, yes.
So I want to just direct your attention to DNA report number 6, supplemental report number 6. Were you able to generate a profile on either of these license plates or the FedEx envelope?
Can you repeat the numbers, please?
It's DNA supplemental report number 6.
Sorry, no, the item numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
96-1, 96-2, and 96-3.
No DNA profile was obtained from any of those swabbings.
Okay, so the license plates that were found in the sewer drain did not have any, you were not able to get a profile?
We did not detect any DNA, no.
Could you just indicate to the jury how those items being in a sewer drain could have potentially influenced any DNA evidence that might have been contained on them?
Well, DNA, a sewer probably has water in it, I would believe, so water being exposed to the evidence that was sitting in the sewer drain would possibly wash it away. Also, depending how long it was in the sewer drain makes a big impact on getting rid of DNA also.
I'm going to read a stipulation now, paragraph 2. State Police Exhibit 502A, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one clear plastic bag with blood-like substance contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 50. And staying within State Trial Exhibit 109, I'm opening up the folder entitled State Police Exhibit 502A, Lab Submission 50. And I'm displaying Lab 50 with paper added. There was a swabbing done here identified as 51S2. A portion of a reddish-brown staining on the exterior as received. And the results of this can be found in DNA supplemental reports number 2, 9, and 18.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 51S2 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 51S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from 51S2.
And then with respect to the children in DNA supplemental report number 9, is it fair to say that the results were inconclusive as to all Dulos children, whether or not they could be contributors to the profile?
That is correct, and Lauren and Pavel are both eliminated as contributors.
Attorney McGinnis, it may be helpful if the jury does not recall what those items are to indicate what the items are in the photo.
Oh, yes, sir. This is lab submission number 50, which was identified as State Police Exhibit 502A, one clear plastic bag with blood-like substance, seized from Hartford.
Your Honor, for the record, isn't it blood-like stain is what it refers to rather than substance?
The stipulation that we entered into indicates blood-like substance.
All right.
And I want to direct your attention now to DNA supplemental report number 12. There were hair-like fibers that were taken from submission number 50 that you did mitochondrial DNA testing on, is that correct?
That is correct. I tried to do nuclear DNA testing and did not develop a profile, so then we went to mitochondrial DNA testing.
And is it fair to say that everyone was eliminated?
Yes, I developed a full mitochondrial DNA profile, and none of the profiles matched to any of the known. None of the known profiles matched to this evidence.
Just going to read paragraph 3. State Police Exhibit 502B, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one clear plastic bag with blood-like substance contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission number 51. I'm going to stay within that same disk and open up that folder. And I'm displaying the photograph entitled Lab 51 as received. Now, there were swabbings taken by biology of this as well, beginning with, and these next several results, Ms. Mado, can be found in 2, 9, and 18 for your benefit. Beginning with 51 1S3, which was identified as reddish-brown staining of the exterior. Could you indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 51 1S3, originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from 51 S3 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual.
And then is it fair to say that all known profiles that you analyzed were eliminated from this particular sample?
Yes, that is correct.
And 51 1S4, which was identified as a reddish-brown staining from the front lower opening, were the results the same in that it was 100 billion times more likely that the profile generated from the toothbrush was a contributor than an unknown person, and all other individuals were, or all other known individuals were eliminated?
Yes, it was a single female profile.
And 51 1S5, which was identified as a reddish-brown stain from the hood top area. Same results?
Yes.
Just going to display the photograph 51 1S6 and 51 1S7. With respect to 51 1S6, was it the same results, 100 billion times more likely to be generated, that profile to be generated from the profile obtained from the toothbrush as opposed to an unknown person, and all other known individuals were eliminated?
Yes.
How about 51 1S7?
Same results.
And I'm going to display the photograph, Lab 51, 1S3, and S4, and S5, and S6, and S8. And 51, 1S8, what were the results?
Same results.
Okay, and that was identified as a swabbing from the exterior of hood.
Correct.
I don't know that I identified 51 1S6 and 51 1S7, so I'll just do that for the record. 51 S6, for which you received the same results, was identified as a swabbing from the interior of hood. Is that correct?
Yes.
And 51 1S7 was identified as reddish-brown staining from the interior front. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I want to jump ahead to also 51 1S2, which was identified as a hard whitish material with reddish-brown staining. There was a swabbing done of that as well, which was identified as 51 1S2-2. Is that correct?
51 1S2.
And I think this can be found in DNA report 11 and 19.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 51. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on one second. 51. My report refers to it as 51S2-2.
That's correct.
Okay. The DNA profile from item 51S2-2 originating from a single female individual, assuming one individual, the DNA profile from 51S2-2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. And all other knowns are eliminated from that profile.
I'm going to jump ahead to State Trial Exhibit 111A. This was Anita Valonis's disc. And I'm just going to read a stipulation, Your Honor. State Police Exhibit 502C, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one yellow and green kitchen sponge with blood-like substance contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 54. I'm just going to open that folder and display the photograph entitled Lab 54 1S, 54S1 and 54S2. And Ms. Maydell, just for your benefit, all of these results with respect to this particular submission can be found in supplemental reports 3, 9, and 18.
Okay. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 54S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from 54S1 is at least 7.2 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. Jennifer Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 54S1.
And is it also fair to say that all of the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumiani, were eliminated as well?
Yes, that is correct.
And just to refresh the jury's memory, when you say that something is consistent with being a single female or a single contributor, what does that mean exactly?
That there's no evidence of more than one person contributing to that profile.
And just for the record, 54S1 was identified as a reddish-brown stain along the short edge. Is that correct?
Yes, mine is, it's called a stain on a sponge along short edge.
And I want to direct your attention now to 54S2, which is identified as a reddish-brown stain near short edge. What were the results with respect to that?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 54S2 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 54S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. Jennifer Dulos, Michelle Troconis, and all other knowns are eliminated to that single female profile.
And swabbing 54S3 was identified as swabbing of areas on yellow portion. I'm displaying the photo, Lab 54S3. What were the results of your DNA analysis for that particular swabbing?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 54S3 being a mixture of two contributors. Assuming two contributors, the DNA profile from item 54S3 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to item 54S3. Assuming two contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Michelle Troconis could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 54S3.
And then would it be also fair to say that the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumieni, were eliminated as contributors to this profile?
Yes, that is correct.
Just going to read a stipulation, paragraph 5 of States 103. State Police Exhibit 502D, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one black rubber and fabric glove with dirt-like substance contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 61. I'm just going to stay within that folder, and I'm going to display the photo entitled Lab 61S1 through 61S3. And for your benefit, Ms. Maydell, these results can be found in DNA report, supplemental reports 3, 9, and 18.
S1 was a swabbing of a glove interior palm side. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 61S1 originating from a single individual. The source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is eliminated as a source of the DNA profile from item 61S1. Due to the limited data detected from 61S1, the comparison to Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are inconclusive.
And were the results also inconclusive as to the Dulos children and Lauren Almeida?
That is correct, and Pavel is eliminated.
Now, with respect to 61S2, which is identified as a swabbing of a reddish-brown soil-type staining on the exterior palm side cuff edge, what were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 61S2 originating from a single individual. Due to the limited data detected from item 61S2, the comparison to the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is inconclusive. Fotis Dulos, Michelle Troconis are eliminated as a source of the DNA profile from 61S2.
And with respect to the children, were the results inconclusive as to them?
That is correct, and Lauren and Pavel are eliminated.
And 61-1S3, which was identified as swabbing soil-type deposits exterior palm side cuff area, you did not get a profile for that particular test, correct?
61S3, correct. No DNA profile was detected.
And I'm opening up the photo entitled Lab 61S4 and 61S5. 61S4 was identified as swabbing of interior palm side. Can you indicate for the jury what the results were with respect to the interior palm side of this particular glove?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 61S4 originating from a single individual. The source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from item 61S4. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 61S4 is at least 27,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from Fotis Dulos than if it originated from an unknown individual. Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a source of the DNA profile from 61S4.
And also fair to say the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumieni, were eliminated as well, correct?
That is correct.
And 61 1S5, which was identified as swabbing of interior back of hand. Can you indicate to the jury what the results were for that particular swab?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 61S5 being a mixture of 2 contributors. The source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is eliminated as a source to the DNA profile from item 61S5. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive to whether Fotis Dulos could be a contributor to the profile from 61S5. Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 61S5. The results do not support the hypothesis that Petros Dulos or Theodore Dulos are contributors to this profile. Assuming 2 contributors, Petros Dulos and Theodore Dulos are eliminated as contributors to item 61S5. Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Constantine, Christiane, or C. Noel Dulos could be contributors to the DNA profile from item 61S5. Lauren and Pavel are eliminated as contributors.
Publishing paragraph 6 of States 103. State Police Exhibit 502E seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as 1 pair of black husky gloves contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 62. I'm going to open that folder. Just going to display the photograph entitled Lab 62 1S1. 62 1S1 was identified as the swabbing of left glove interior palm side. Can you indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 62 1S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming 1 individual, the DNA profile from item 62 1S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. All other knowns are eliminated.
And 61 1S2 and 1S3, I'm now displaying that particular photograph, which shows the approximate area where those swabbings took place. Were the results the same, meaning that 100 billion times more likely to have originated from the profile generated from the toothbrush, and all other knowns were eliminated with respect to 62 1S2 and 62 1S3?
That is correct.
And just for the record, 62 1S2 was identified as reddish-brown staining on exterior logo of back of hand, and 62 1S3 was identified as reddish-brown staining areas on exterior wrist closure. I'd like to talk to you now about the right glove. We were just talking about the left glove, which was identified as 62-2. There were also swabbings taken of this. I'm displaying the photograph entitled Lab 62 2S1 and 62 2S3. 62 2S1 was identified as swabbing of right glove interior palm side. What were the results with respect to that?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 62 2S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming 1 individual, the DNA profile from 62 2S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as 62 2S1.
As are all other knowns, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
62-2S2 is identified as reddish-brown staining on exterior, logo on back of hand. I'm going to try to display that photograph. Here we go. This is photograph lab 62-2S2 and 62-2S4. Could you indicate the results for 62-2S2?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 62-2S2 being a mixture of two contributors. Assuming two contributors, the DNA profile from item 62-2S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from 62-2S2. The results do not support the hypothesis that Michelle Troconis is a contributor to this profile. Assuming two contributors, Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to DNA profile from 62-2S2.
And with respect to the children?
Given the, assuming two contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros, Constantine, Christiane, C. Noel, or Theodore could be contributors to the profile from 62S2. The results do not support the hypothesis that Lauren Almeida is a contributor to this profile. Assuming two contributors, Lauren Almeida is eliminated as a contributor to this profile, and Pavel is also eliminated as a contributor, 62-2S2.
And Judge, I just have two more swabbings for this particular submission and then perhaps the morning recess.
Yes.
Directing your attention now to 62-2S3, which is identified as reddish-brown staining, stitching on wrist closure, palm side. Could you indicate to the jury what the results were? And this is in 3, 9, and 18.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 62-2S3, originating from a single female individual. So this same conclusion, this ceiling stat, and everybody else is eliminated.
Okay, when you say the ceiling stat, it's
100 billion times more likely,
that it originated from the profile generated on the toothbrush?
yes, versus an unknown individual.
And just with respect to 62-2S4, which is identified as reddish-brown staining on the stitching on wrist closure, back of hand.
Same conclusions,
In other words, 100 billion times more likely to be the profile from the toothbrush.
correct, than an unknown individual, and everybody else is eliminated.
Judge, is this a good time to take the morning recess?
Yes. We'll stand in our morning recess, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not discuss the case.
This honorable Superior Court now open and back in session. Good morning, Your Honor.
Please be seated. You may proceed.
Oh, we're ready for the jury,
Oh, sorry.
Judge.
The counsel stipulate, please.
Yes, Judge.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just going to publish the stipulation, Your Honor, 103, paragraph 7. State Police Exhibit 502H, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as 4 large white zip ties with blood-like substance contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 52. And now I'm in State Trial Exhibit 109 in the Lab Submission 52 folder, and I'm displaying the photograph entitled 52-1S1 through 52-4S1. I want to just direct your attention now to some swabbings that were taken of this particular submission. And Ms. Maydell, for your benefit, the results can be found in your reports, supplemental reports 2, 9, and 18. Beginning with 52-1S1, swabbing of surface including stains. Can you indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 52-1S1, originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 52-1S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual.
And Attorney McGinnis, would you again remind the jury about what they are seeing on the screen?
Yes, Judge, these were the zip ties seized from Hartford, Exhibit 502H, submission number 52.
Thank you.
And all other knowns were eliminated as a contributor.
And just to be clear, so the profile was, it was 100 billion times more likely to have been generated by the profile you found on the electric toothbrush than an unknown individual. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it was a single female profile?
Correct.
And with respect to swabbings 52-2S1, swabbing of surface including stains, 52-3S3, swabbing of surface including stains, and 52-4S1, swabbing of surface including stains. Were the results identical?
Yes, they were.
And I'm displaying Lab 52-3S2. That's a photograph. What were the DNA results for swabbing 52-3S2 identified as a reddish-brown stain?
The same results as the other 4 from the zip ties.
Single female, 100 billion times more likely to be the profile from the electric toothbrush.
Yes, and all other knowns eliminated.
Publishing paragraph 8 of that same stipulation. State Police Exhibit 502I, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one white standard textile towel with blood-like substance contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 53. And I'm going to open up that folder in State Trial Exhibit 109. And I'm opening the photograph entitled Lab 51 3S1 and 53S2. With respect to the swabbing 53S1, which was a swabbing of a portion of a reddish-brown stain, what were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 53S1 being a mixture of 2 contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 53S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from 53S1.
And then with respect to the children?
Assuming 2 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros, Constantine, Christiane, C. Noel, or Theodore Dulos could be contributors to the DNA profile from 53S1. Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumini are eliminated as contributors.
And I might stand corrected on that. It may not have been a swabbing. It may have actually been a cutting of the 53S1 may have actually been a cutting of the towel.
Mine is described as a portion of a reddish-brown stain from towel.
Right, so it was actually a piece of the towel as opposed to a swabbing of the towel.
Correct. They normally would call it a swabbing, yes.
And then with respect to 53S2, which was I believe another cutting of a reddish-brown stain. Is that correct?
It might be a different report.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's supplemental report number 3.
Yes. 53S2 is a reddish-brown stain from a towel. 53S2. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 53S2 originating from a single individual. The source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from item 53S2. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are also eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 53S2.
I believe everyone was eliminated from this, is that correct?
Double check.
Sure.
Yes, correct. Everybody's eliminated.
I'm just going to go to State Trial Exhibit 111A. And I'm going to open the folder, State Police 502I Lab Submission 53, and display the photograph Lab 53S3-1. Now, with respect to Lab Submission 53, S3-1, the results are found in your supplemental report number 12, Ms. Maydell. This was identified as a human hair by Ms. Valonis. And can you just indicate to the jury what type of testing you did on this and what the results were?
Sure. I attempted to obtain a nuclear DNA profile, was not able to, so I then processed mitochondrial DNA on the shaft. And I generated not a full mitochondrial DNA profile, a partial. And the mitochondrial DNA sequence obtained from item 53S3-1 and number 45, which is the known from Fotis Dulos, are the same. Therefore, Fotis Dulos, or another member of the same maternal lineage, cannot be excluded as the source of the item 53S3-01. So then I searched the database of that partial profile to see how frequent that profile is seen. In the African American population, you would expect to see it more than 0.12%, Caucasian 0.11%, and the Hispanic 0.12%. All other knowns were excluded as being the possible source of that mitochondrial DNA sequence.
In that same State Trial Exhibit 111A, I'm opening the folder, Lab Submission 55. And I'm going to publish paragraph 9 of the stipulation. State Police Exhibit 502J, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one red and black bent broom/mop handle with blood-like substance on the black handle, contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 55. I'd like to begin talking to you about swabbings that were taken of this particular item, specifically 55S2, which was reddish-brown deposits inside of the broken end. And I'm just going to zoom in here to the upper left-hand corner of this image. What were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 55S2 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 55S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. And all other knowns are eliminated.
And then with respect to 55S3, which was identified as a reddish-brown stain on black cap, 55S4, identified as a reddish-brown stain near broken end, and 55S5, swabbing of metal portion of handle. Were those results identical?
Yes, they were.
I'm just jumping back to State Trial Exhibit 109. For the first several of the next results, Ms. Maydell, for your benefit, DNA reports 4, 9, and 18, and I'll let you know when we jump ahead. Judge, stipulated between the parties, 502K was the 4 pieces of black garbage bag seized from Hartford and given lab submission number 88. And I'm just going to open the folder, lab submission 88, and the subfolder 88-1. Displaying the photograph 88-1S1. This was identified as swabbing of black duct tape, non-adhesive side. What were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-1S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 88-1S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. And all other knowns are eliminated.
Displaying photograph lab 88.1S2. This was identified as swabbing from tangle of black tape, non-adhesive side. What were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-1S2 being a mixture of two contributors. Assuming two contributors, the DNA profile from item 88-1S2 is at least 3.9 million times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile. Assuming two contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Michelle Troconis could be a contributor to the DNA profile from 88-1S2.
And can I actually ask you a follow-up question to that? That was under the original DNA kit, is that correct?
This was the Fusion 6C kit, correct?
But you used Global Filer in 2023, is that correct?
For the known, correct.
And so in 2023, the defendant, when you analyzed the profile again, she was actually eliminated as being a contributor to this particular profile, is that correct?
Let me just double check.
Sure.
That is correct. The results do not support the hypothesis that Michelle Troconis is a contributor to this profile. Assuming two contributors, Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to the Fusion 6C DNA profile.
Can you just explain to the jury again how it is that she went from being inconclusive under the first kit to eliminated under the second kit?
Well, when we did our comparison, we lost those two testing sites with information. So she went from having a little bit more information to put her in the inconclusive range to not having that information, so it eliminated her.
And then with respect to the children on this particular swabbing? And that's in DNA sub 9.
Given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros, Christiane, C. Noel, or Theodore could be contributors to the profile from DNA profile from item 88-1S2. Assuming two contributors, the DNA profile from item 88-1S2 is at least 12,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from Konstantin Dulos and one unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown individuals. And Lauren and Pavel are eliminated.
Displaying lab 88-1S3, which was identified as a reddish-brown stain exterior of non-damaged plastic bag. And this is in DNA sub 4. What were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-1S3 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from 88-1S3 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. And all other knowns are eliminated.
And then lab 88-1S4, I'm displaying that photograph. This was identified as reddish-brown staining interior of damaged plastic bag. What were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-1S4 being a mixture of two contributors. Assuming 2 contributors, the DNA profile from item 88-1S4 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 1 unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals. The results do not support the hypothesis that Fotis Dulos is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 2 contributors, Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to this profile from 88-1S4. Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to this profile.
And then with respect to the children,
Given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results of all 5 children are inconclusive, and Lauren and Pavel are eliminated.
displaying photograph Lab 88.1S6. Lab 88-1S6 was identified as a swabbing from exterior opening of non-damaged plastic bag. And this is in DNA supplemental report number 5, 10, and 18 for your benefit, Ms. Maydell.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-1S6 being a mixture of 4 contributors, with at least one of them being male. Assuming 4 contributors, the DNA profile from item 88-1S6 is 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown individuals. The results do not support the hypothesis that Fotis Dulos is a contributor to this profile. Assuming 4 contributors, Fotis Dulos is eliminated as a contributor to item 88-1S1. Assuming 4 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Michelle Troconis could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 88-1S6.
And the Dulos children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumieni, were eliminated. Is that correct?
Number 10. The results do not support the hypothesis that the 5 Dulos children are contributors. They are eliminated, and Lauren and Pablo are also eliminated.
And 88-1S7, which was identified as swabbing from exterior opening of damaged plastic bag. You did not develop a profile on that particular swabbing, correct?
Correct. No nuclear DNA profile was detected.
And with respect to just going to jump back to State Trial Exhibit 111A, Lab Submission Folder 88, Subfolder 88-1. There was a yellow and green sponge located within Submission 88-1. And there were swabbings taken of that. And I'm just going to display Lab 88.1.1S1. What were the results of the swabbing Lab 88-1-1S1? And that's in DNA Sup 4. I believe no profile was obtained, is that correct?
88. (88-1-1S1).
That's correct.
Correct. No DNA profile was obtained.
I can't remember if I asked you this earlier, but how is it possible that a profile was not obtained?
There's just not enough DNA there to be detected in our system.
Okay. And then there was also a human hair removed from that sponge. I'm displaying a photograph entitled Lab 88.1.1S2. and directing your attention to DNA supplemental report number 12.
Yes.
Can you just indicate to the jury what type of testing you did on this hair and what the results were?
Again, I attempted to get nuclear DNA profile from this hair and I did not. So then I tested it for mitochondrial DNA and obtained a full mitochondrial DNA profile. And in comparing the mitochondrial DNA profile from 88-1-1S2-01 and the known from 94, submission number 94, which is Pavel's known, are the same. Therefore, Pavel Gumini or another member of the same maternal lineage cannot be excluded as the source of item 88-1-1S2-01. So searching the database of that profile, I would not expect to see this profile in more than 0.12% in the African American population, 0.36% in the Caucasian, 0.12% in the Hispanic, 0.46 in the Asian, or 0.46 in the Native American populations. All other knowns were excluded as being the possible source of that mitochondrial DNA sequence.
Just jumping back to State Trial Exhibit 109. In lab submission number 88, folder 88-1. And I'm going to display the photograph, lab 88.1.2S1. There was a black plastic garbage bag that was folded and found with inside 88-1. And the swabbing 88-1-2S1 was identified as a brownish stain from the exterior. What were the results of that? And this is in 4, 9, and 18.
(88-2S1) did not generate a nuclear DNA profile.
I'm sorry, 88-1-2S1.
1-2S1, sorry.
That's okay.
1-2S1,
DNA sub 4.
yes. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 88-1-2S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 88-1-2S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual, while other knowns are eliminated.
I'm just going to go to subfolder 88-2. 88-2 was identified as one black plastic garbage bag. And there were swabbings taken of this as well. And for your benefit, Ms. Maydell, this is in 4, 9, and 18. Just beginning with 88-2S1, which was identified as a swabbing of latent print partially outlined exterior. Would it be fair to say that no profile was developed from that particular swabbing?
That is correct.
With respect to 88-2S2, which was identified as a reddish-brown stain exterior, what were the results?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-2S2 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 88-2S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual, and all other knowns are eliminated.
And 88-2S3 was identified as a brownish stain on the exterior.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-2S3 originating from a single individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 88-2S3 is at least 880,000 times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 88-2S3.
And 88-2S4 was identified as swabbing of brownish stain exterior. That was actually identified as belonging to a member of the Scientific Services Laboratory, is that correct?
That is correct, and if I can just say for 88-2S3, all other knowns were eliminated too.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, I didn't get to that, but yes, 88-2S4 had laboratory staff contamination, so there's no comparisons for that.
And is everyone that works at the laboratory required to submit a DNA sample, or what does that look like?
Yes, we have what we call a staff index, so when all of our DNA profiles are completed in analysis, before we write a report or do any comparisons, we search all those profiles from the evidence against our staff index to make sure that no contamination occurred.
Okay. And so in this particular instance, contamination was noted, so no additional comparison was done, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And with respect to 88-2S5, which was identified as a reddish-brown stain from garbage bag exterior, what were the results of that?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-2S5 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from 88-2S5 is at least 6.5 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual, and all other knowns are eliminated.
And with respect to 88-2S6, which was identified as swabbing from opening exterior,
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-2S6 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 88-2S6 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. All other knowns are eliminated.
and displaying the photograph entitled Lab 88-2S7, identified as a swabbing of a reddish-brown stain interior. No profile was developed from this particular swabbing, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And displaying the photograph Lab 88-2S8. This was identified as reddish-brown stain interior. What were the results of this analysis?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 88-2S8 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 88-2S8 is at least 1.9 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual, and all other knowns are eliminated.
Just going to publish the stipulation, Your Honor, paragraph 11. State Police Exhibit 502S, seized from Hartford by Sergeant Kevin Duggan on May 31st, 2019, and identified as one metal scraper with a broken blade, contained within State Police Exhibit 502, seized from the scene, corner of Albany Avenue and Green Street, Hartford, Connecticut, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 40. I'm going to open up the folder for submission 40 and display the photograph entitled Lab 40S1 and 40S2. I want to direct your attention now. This can be found in DNA reports 2, 9, and 18 for your benefit. So with respect to swabbing 40S1, which was identified as a swabbing of blade and blade holder, could you indicate to the jury what the results of your analysis were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 40S1 being a mixture of two contributors. Assuming two contributors, the DNA profile from item 40S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush and one known individual than if it originated from two unknown individuals. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as contributors to 40S1.
And would it be fair to say that the children, Lauren Almeida and Pavel Gumieni, were eliminated as well?
That is correct, yes.
And with respect to 40S2, which was identified as swabbing of tool, what was the results of your DNA analysis?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 40S2, originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 40S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual, and all other knowns are eliminated.
I'm going to publish State's Exhibit 104, which is a stipulation, specifically paragraph 3, and this is the stipulation with respect to the Toyota Tacoma. Paragraph 3, State Police Exhibit 207, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on June 11, 2019, and identified as one cutting of upholstery fabric with blood-like stain, KN positive, seized from the scene, seatback, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 86. And I'm going to open up State Trial Exhibit 93. There's a subfolder entitled Tacoma for Court. And I'm going to display photograph 18. And Ms. Maydell, for your benefit, this can be found in DNA reports 3, 9, and 18. 86S1, which was identified as a swabbing of cutting of upholstery-like fabric. Could you indicate to the jury what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from 86S1 originating from a single female individual. Assuming one individual, the DNA profile from item 86S1 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush than if it originated from an unknown individual. And all other knowns are eliminated.
Sorry, I'm just waiting for it to buffer. I'm just going to read the stipulation. This is paragraph 4 from State's 104. State Police Exhibit 208, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on June 11, 2019, and identified as 2 swabs seized from the scene, front plate screws, and surrounding areas, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 90, and I'm displaying photograph 1 in that same subfolder, Tacoma for Court. Directing your attention to DNA Supplemental Report number 4, 90S1, identified as envelope with 2 swabs from front plate screws and surrounding area. Were you able to generate a DNA profile on those screws?
I did not.
If I could just have one moment, Your Honor. I'm displaying photograph 8. I'm just going to read the stipulation. This is paragraph 1. State Police Exhibit 203, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on June 11, 2019, and identified as 2 swabs of blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from scene, interior side of left door, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 84. And this is found in DNA sub 2. 84S1 was identified as 2 swabs of that blood-like stain. Were you able to generate a profile?
You said 84S1?
Yes.
No, DNA profile was generated.
Just going to read that stipulation, paragraph 2. State Police Exhibit 206, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on June 11, 2019, and identified as 2 swabs of blood-like stain, KM negative, seized from the scene, interior side of right door, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 85. Were you able to generate a profile on those 2 swabbings? 85S1?
I did not. No DNA profile was detected.
Just going to jump back to State Trial Exhibit 109, the lab submission 97 folder, and read paragraph 5 of the stipulation. State Police Exhibit 323, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on June 26, 2019, and identified as 1 Connecticut registration plate 6617CN with 2 screws, CA/DP process, seized from the scene front, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as submission 97. And I'm displaying a photograph entitled Lab 97.1S1. Ms. Maydell, with respect to those particular swabbings, were you able to generate a profile?
Sorry, what DNA report is that?
Oh, certainly. It's DNA supplemental report number 6.
There was 2 different items that I tested, 97.1S1 and 97.2S1, and both did not generate a DNA profile.
And 2S1 was identified as 1 envelope with 2 screws, correct?
Mine was called swabbing from screws and washers.
Yes. I'm just displaying those screws for the jury. And you were not able to develop a profile on those as well?
Correct.
I'm just going to publish the stipulation again. Paragraph 6, State Police Exhibit 324, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on June 26, 2019, and identified as 2 swabs seized from the scene, screw threads in State Police Exhibit 323, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 91. With respect to Submission 91, which became 91S1, the 2 swabs that were submitted, were you able to generate a profile? And that's in DNA Sub 4.
No, 91S1, there was no DNA profile generated.
Opening the folder entitled Lab Submission 98. I'm going to publish paragraph 7. State Police Exhibit 325, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on June 26, 2019, and identified as 1 Connecticut registration plate 6617CN with 2 screws paren CA/DP processed, seized from the scene rear, was subsequently submitted to Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 98. And I'm just going to direct your attention now to the swabbing of 98-1 was identified as the license plate, and 98-2 was identified as the 2 screws that came with it. With respect to 98-1S1, what were the results of your DNA analysis?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 98-1S1 originating from a single individual. The source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush, Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis, are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 98-1S1.
Would it be fair to say that with respect to 98-1S1, all of the known profiles that you examined were eliminated?
Just want to double check.
And that's in 10 and 18
Yes.
as well.
That is correct. All the knowns are eliminated.
And then with respect to 98-2S1, which was the swabbing of the screws and washers, what was the result of that?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 98-2S1 originating from a single individual. Due to the limited data detected from 98-2S1, the comparison of the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is inconclusive. Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from item 98-2S1.
And with respect to the children? And that's in 10.
Sure. Due to the limited data detected from item 98-2S1, the comparison to Petros and Christiane Dulos are inconclusive. Constantine, C. Noel, Theodore, Lauren, and Pavel are all eliminated as the source of the DNA profile from 98-2S1.
Just going to publish that stipulation, paragraph 8. State Police Exhibit 326, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on June 26, 2019, and identified as 2 swabs from the scene, screw threads, in State Police Exhibit 325, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 92, and this is found in DNA Sub 4, Ms. Maydell. 92S1 was identified as the envelope with those 2 swabs. Is it fair to say you were unable to generate a profile?
That is correct.
Opening Submission 99. And displaying the photograph, Lab 99S5. Paragraph 9 of that stipulation, State Police Exhibit 363, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on August 27, 2019, and identified as one interior door panel from right door, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 99. With respect to 99S5, which was identified as swabbing from edges of fabric panel and panel area, what were the results of your DNA analysis? And this is in 6 and 18 for your benefit.
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 99S5 being a mixture of 3 contributors. The results do not support the hypothesis that the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is a contributor. Assuming 3 contributors, the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from item 99S5. The results also do not support the hypothesis that Dulos or Michelle Troconis are contributors to this profile. Dulos and Michelle Troconis are eliminated.
And were there any results with respect to the children?
Petros, Constantine, and Christiane, and Pavel are eliminated as contributors to the DNA profile from item 99S5. Assuming 3 contributors, given the low likelihood ratio as calculated, the results are inconclusive whether C. Noel Dulos could be a contributor to the DNA profile from item 99S5. And the results do not support the hypothesis that Lauren Almeida or Theodore Dulos are contributors to this profile. Assuming 3 contributors, Lauren Almeida and Theodore Dulos are eliminated to the DNA profile from 99S5.
And now I'm going to display lab 99S6 through 99S8. (99S6) identified as swabbing from panel handle attachment area. 99S7 swabbing from panel handle area. 99S8 swabbing from panel openings for plastic cup and edges of plastic cups. 99S9 swabbing from panel opening for speaker and edges of speaker. And this is found in DNA supplemental report number 6. You were not able to generate a profile for any of those?
That is correct.
Ms. Maydell, would you expect that with a work truck that is used fairly frequently that there would be some DNA on a door handle?
Objection, speculation, and lack of foundation.
Sustained.
With respect to 99S11, which was identified as swabbing from handle, you did not generate a profile for that either, correct?
That is correct.
And jumping to State Trial Exhibit 111A, the submission 99S14, just displaying that photograph within that folder. This was identified as a human hair by Ms. DeLonis, coming from that particular submission. And I'll direct your attention to DNA Sup 12. Did you perform any analysis?
Yes, I attempted nuclear DNA and mitochondrial DNA testing on the hair root and the hair shaft and did not generate a profile for either.
And with respect to 99S15, which was identified as swabbing from fabric area, what were the results?
No profile, nuclear DNA profile was generated.
I'm going to stay within State Trial Exhibit 111A and open the Laboratory Submission 100 folder. And I'm just going to publish that stipulation, paragraph 10. State Police Exhibit 364, seized from the Toyota Tacoma by Detective Matthew Riley on August 27, 2019, and identified as carpeting cut from right floor, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 100. And within this folder, I'm going to pull up the photograph entitled Lab 100.1S1 and 100.1S2. Specifically, the swabbing of 100-1S1, brownish staining located on top side. Were you able to generate a profile?
No, no DNA profile was obtained.
And with respect to 101S2, which was identified as brownish staining located on top side, were you able to generate a profile?
Yes. The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 100-1S2 being a mixture of 3 contributors with at least one of them being male. The results do not support the hypothesis that the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is a contributor. Assuming 3 contributors, the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is eliminated as a contributor to the DNA profile from 101S2. The results do not support the hypothesis that Jennifer Dulos or Michelle Troconis are contributors to this profile. They are eliminated.
Ms. Medell, I want you to assume the following facts are true. I want you to assume that on May 29, 2019, the Toyota Tacoma belonging to Pavel Gumieni was detailed at a car wash. How, if at all, could a car being detailed impact potential DNA evidence found in the car?
Well, as of any wiping or cleaning that we talked about before, that can remove any DNA that may be left behind or any biological material.
And could that also potentially prevent DNA profiles from being generated on objects tested?
Correct. We wouldn't have enough DNA to be detected, therefore would not generate a profile. I need to finish the conclusions for 101S2.
Oh, I'm sorry, go
That's
ahead.
okay. Assuming 3 contributors for the DNA profile from item 101S2 is at least 100 billion times more likely to occur if it originated from Pavel Gumieni and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown individuals. The Dulos children and Lauren Almeida are eliminated.
Judge, I have what has been identified as State Exhibit 122. It's a stipulation between the parties. I would just move it into evidence formally with the court.
Do you wish to publish it?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
122,
Yes, sir.
states 122 admitted as full.
This is a stipulation regarding evidence seized from Fotis Dulos' 2015 Chevrolet Suburban and submitted to the Division of Scientific Services. Paragraph 1, State Police Exhibit 144, seized from Fotis Dulos' 2015 Chevrolet Suburban by Detective Matthew Riley on May 31st, 2019, and identified as 1 swab of a blood-like stain, KM positive, seized from the scene from State Police Exhibit 123, left side of WeatherTech floor liner, rear cargo area, was subsequently submitted to the Division of Scientific Services and designated as Submission 42. This can be found in your very first DNA report. Could you just indicate what the results were?
The results are consistent with the DNA profile from item 42S1 being a mixture of 3 contributors with at least one of them being male. The results do not support the hypothesis that the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is a contributor. Assuming 3 contributors, the source of the DNA profile from the swabbing of the electric toothbrush is eliminated.
And then I believe it's also
Number 9.
ES and 18 as well, and perhaps also SUP 1.
Okay. This one. Yes. Assuming 3 contributors, the DNA profile from item 42S1 is at least 41 million times more likely to occur if it originated from Fotis Dulos and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown individuals. Michelle Troconis is eliminated as a contributor to 42S1. Assuming 3 contributors, given the low likelihood ratios calculated, the results are inconclusive as to whether Petros, Constantine, Christiane, C. Noel, or Theodore could be a contributor to the DNA profile from 42S1. Lauren and Pavel are eliminated as contributors.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm just going to return exhibits 122, 103, and 104 to the clerk. I don't have anything additional, Your Honor.
Thank you. Attorney Schoenhorn.
I'm just going to need a minute to organize here. Just have a moment. Is it afternoon? It is. Good afternoon again, Ms. Medell.
Good afternoon.
Looks like you were someplace sunny where, but since the last time you were here.
Yes.
You went through a lot of stuff today, and I'm not going to ask you about any of it, but I wanted to ask you specifically about the exterior of the black garbage bags that we've talked about a lot, 88 dash, and then we have 1, 2, 3, et cetera. You know which ones I'm talking about if you want to pull out that.
Yes. Do you know
Report.
which report it was? Or I could try and find it.
I do, but I would have to
I
go.
think, are you referring to 883S7?
Yes.
The number, supplemental DNA report 5.
Okay, so I'm actually back up a step. So when you received this item, these were 2 garbage bags, 88 that had been separated, is that correct? 88-1 and 88-3 were 2 garbage bags that originally had been sort of connected together?
I never saw the garbage bags, so the FB people examine all those garbage bags, and they do the swabbings for DNA, and they put those swabbings or cuttings into a little tube and put them into a secure location for storage until I'm ready to go do my DNA testing. So I don't actually see those parent items.
Certain images were put up on the screen during your testimony, correct, today?
Sure, but I didn't turn around and look at them.
All right, so fair to say that you didn't see any of the items that Mr. McGinnis was displaying on the screen while you were doing your testing, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
As I understand it, the swab of 88-3S7, and I sort of, was from the edge, so shall we say the exterior edge of the garbage bag, correct?
My description is the swabbing of bag opening and separate bag portion.
Okay, but when we're talking about the opening, you're talking about the place where you would open a garbage bag to put stuff in, correct?
I would say that's correct from the description.
And the image that was displayed at the time was written, it said exterior. Would that be fair to say that the swab was from the exterior of that opening of the bag?
I can't say that because I didn't take the swabbing and that's not in my description.
In any event, you used at the time the Fusion 6C program in order, or the
Kit.
kit, in order to obtain a DNA profile or profiles from that swab, correct?
That is correct, yes.
In order to do that, you actually you determine from the swab after you put it into a tube, right? You make it into a liquid, correct?
Yes, create a DNA extract.
And you actually, from that, are able, from the Fusion 6C kit, to determine the weight, or shall we say, quantity of that sample, correct?
No, it's actually before that step. The Fusion 6C step is when we're actually making the copies of the DNA. That second step, called quantification, is when we determined how much DNA we think we have, and then we use that Fusion 6C kit to make more copies of it.
Okay, so as I think you explained, when you talk about making copies, it's almost like you're taking a tiny, tiny actual sample and you're making like photocopies of it, only it's not really photocopies. It just multiplies the DNA into a larger quantity. Is that correct?
Yes, hoping we can detect DNA profile.
But when we're talking about the quantity, it comes in nanograms and picograms, correct?
That is correct. When we do the quantification, it tells us how many nanograms or picograms we have of that sample from that DNA extract from the swab.
And that is indicated in a Fusion 6C PowerPlex chart that comes out, correct?
I'm not necessarily the nanograms or the picograms. That's in the quantifier report. The electropharogram that's at the end is represented by a series of peaks.
It's my understanding that ideally, at least in 2019, the quantity of sample that you would prefer to be able to do a profile would be at least half a nanogram, 0.500 picograms, correct?
0.500 is 500 picograms or a half a nanogram, and that was our target. That's what we target if we have enough DNA. That's the amount that we want, that we're pretty sure we would get a full DNA profile, yes.
But if you had less than that, you would still try to produce a profile, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Your lab, even in 2019, was sophisticated enough so that it could at least obtain a partial profile down to, I forget the number, but quite a lot less than the 500 picograms, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We can get a partial profile from a lot less.
Right. So, could I have the two? These are from the lab. Thank you for your injection. Those are the ones I gave you this one.
I don't have an objection to this. I haven't seen John's.
All right, it's only got 3 pictures. All right, but I'll also, we can do it the other way too. All right, so I understand that with regard to exhibit D, there's no objection.
What was
Defense.
What was the exhibit?
V as in
V as in Victor? No problem. No objection.
Defense V as in Victor, admitted as false.
This is mine.
All right, I'm going to show you, I guess, if I could have. We could get the monitor turned on, please. Right, so you recognize this as an amplification worksheet?
Yes, that is correct.
And if we look at the number 1, there's more than one of the samples that you talked about today, correct?
Correct, there's 3 different swabbings listed there with the controls.
Oh, when you,
Sorry, there's 3 separate.
let me do this, there is a separate microphone, if I can at least maybe,
Yes, along with 883S7, there was 2 other swabbings amplified at the same time with their controls.
and so that, we're talking about the same thing. This is the 3S7 one I just asked you about, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And if we go across, the NG stands for nanograms, correct, of DNA, right?
Correct, yes.
And the amount that's listed just below that is 0.42, correct?
Correct, so that's 420 picograms or 0.42 nanograms.
That was the total sample that was in the, that was the total quantity in the sample that you tested, correct?
Approximately the amount of, yes, DNA that I was amplifying.
And even though that was slightly less than the 500, well, let's do a little math, and I'll do that a little bit later, but there are 1,000 picograms in 1 nanogram, right?
Yes,
And to remind us from the last time I asked you this, a picogram is a trillionth of a gram, right?
correct, yes.
So this would be 420 trillionths of a gram of DNA that you used, right?
Well, if 1 picogram is a trillionth.
Or is it, yeah,
You-
because these are nanograms, well, I guess,
But it's 420 picograms, so it wouldn't be 400 trillionth of a gram.
well, it's,
It's a lot less than a gram.
yes, right. But it's also a lot less than a nanogram, right? It's less
It's
than half of
almost-
a nanogram.
Yes, because a half a nanogram would be 0.5.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So, you were able to, by using this profile, you were able to run a star mix deconvolution program report on this sample, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to then show you a page from the, well, before I even show you the next thing, the deconvolution report will take the sample and it will run the program and create probabilities based on the input that you put in, correct?
I give it the DNA profile that is generated, and then it generates a likelihood ratio when you make a comparison, correct?
In this particular case, you, after using, you called it electrophoresis, that's the program that you run to look at peaks and valleys to determine how many contributors you believe are involved in a particular sample, correct?
Well, the electrophoresis is actually separating those DNA types, and then I look at the profile to determine how many contributors I believe it is.
Okay, and in this particular sample, according to your testimony, you believe there were 4 different people, 4 different DNA sources for this particular sample, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And the one below it, I'll just note, was even smaller a sample, right? The 0.33 was from 881S6, correct?
Yes, that was the highest we could get to, yes.
And that's the one where you said that any comparison to the DNA profile of my client was inconclusive, correct?
I'd have to refresh my recollection.
Sure, would you like to do that?
Sure.
With one, that's 1S6.
881S6. Yes, in supplemental DNA report 5, the likelihood ratios calculator make it inconclusive.
An inconclusive mean there wasn't enough sample for you to make any, either a exclusion or to even make it be a partial inclusion, correct?
Not necessarily enough sample, but when we generated our likelihood ratio, it fell above our elimination, but fell below what we deem a positive association, so we say it's inconclusive. We
And
can't,
so you make no opinion about it, correct?
correct.
Okay. And incidentally, the lab switched from this Fusion 6C to Global Filer in what year?
The end of 2019, beginning of 2020.
So at that point, the lab decided to use Global Filer because it was what, more sophisticated, that program?
No, it was because we were switching vendors and the machines at the same time, so they just switched vendors.
But in any event, you explained why they test for less loci on a DNA strand, but the outcome showed a lower probability likelihood ratio after you reran Michelle Troconis's DNA in 2023, correct?
That is correct, because I had 2 less sites for the comparison.
Right, it went down to 250,000 to 1 as a likelihood, correct?
That was a likelihood ratio, yes.
Assuming 4 contributors and 3 unknowns, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to pull up a page from the deconvolution report. And before I do that, the deconvolution report also estimates the percentages of the 4 contributors to a mixture, correct?
Yes.
So I'm going to put up, I think it's marked as deconvolution. All right, could you zoom in on the bottom part, please? Well, let's start at the top here. This is from your 2019 STR mix report, correct?
Yes.
And this is their logo showing an untangling of a bunch of string up in the corner, correct?
Sure, yes.
All right. And again, so that the jury will understand what we're looking at here, this shows that the file was 88-3S7, correct?
Yes.
That's the same number throughout. If anything that you testified about regarding this sample, it'll show 88-3S7, correct?
Correct.
And then and below that, it talks about the known contributor, and it's got the number 45-2G1. And for the juror's edification, you've already explained this, 45 is the sample that was assigned to the known profile of Michelle Troconis, right?
I believe 45 was Fotis Dulos. 47 was Troconis? Let me just make sure. Yes, 45 is Fotis Dulos, and 47 is Michelle Troconis.
All right. So this report you ran against Fotis Dulos's as a known contributor, correct?
Yes.
And if you go down to the bottom, all right? So when you ran this amount, it showed that 50% of the sample, right, according to Star Mix, was Fotis Dulos's, correct?
Well, yes, it approximates how much each contributor is contributing to that profile before you make a comparison. It deconvolutes the whole profile and gives you the weights for those 4 people that I told it was. And then when you do the comparison with the known, it then tries to see by its already deconvoluted parts if the known matches to any of what the best explanations are.
Okay. Well, what I want you to do is when you look at the proportions of 1, 2, 3, and 4, when you ran it against unknowns, correct?
Well, you only run it against the one known at a time.
Okay, well, that's what I was trying to get at. And in this particular case, the third, shall we say, the third highest contribution, or the third lowest, if you will, was 5%, correct?
The third contributor is contributing approximately 5% of the DNA profile, correct?
5% of 100%, correct?
Correct.
And then the fourth person was 3%, right?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, so if we would go to the LR 47 report. All right, so this is a report that was written, well, that was part of a deconvolution report and likelihood ratio from August of 2019, correct?
Correct.
And this is a report you ran using star mix, correct? STR mix.
Correct.
And in this particular sample, you used 47 as the known contributor, correct?
Correct.
And again, you only run one at a time, as you said, correct?
Correct.
So if you would just go down to the lower part of this, okay? And so in this, it shows the location within the four profiles, separate DNA profiles, for the known sample of Michelle Troconis, correct?
Yes, it fits her to contributor number 3.
Right, and in that case, that would be a 5% of the total, is that right?
Approximately, yes.
And then you reran this, as I think you indicated, in 2023. So if you would pull up 147, 2023, please. Okay, so up at the top, you ran this again in November of 2023, right?
Correct, after I redid the known with Global Filer.
Right, so let me also just indicate, you were given a newer, a more recent DNA sample of my client, correct?
Correct.
Now, her DNA didn't change in the 4 years since it was originally provided, did it?
No, of course not.
Okay, so when you go down to the bottom, it still came out third, correct, in 2023, correct?
Correct, yes.
And as I understand this, the first time you ran it using the Fusion 6C, it was in 2019. It was, the results were cannot be eliminated, correct? That's what you called it, right?
Yes, because that was the terminology we were using at the time.
And then now you use the terminology consistent with source, correct?
Consistent with the contributor for a mixture.
All right. But in any event, it was still only a partial DNA that you were comparing my client's known DNA against, correct? A partial profile, right?
Correct. Her full profile wasn't detected in this 4-person mixture.
All right. So if we do this, the math, if you started with 420 picograms, right? If you'd go back to the deconvolution report, second one, and then zoom in at the percentages here, right there. All right. So if we assume there was a total of 420 picograms, right? That means 50% of the sample belonged, in this case, to Mr. Dulos, correct?
Approximately, yes.
And when you swiped, excuse me, you didn't actually do the swiping for the sample in this case, correct?
You mean the swabbing of the bag?
The swabbing,
I did not know.
right. Someone else ran it somewhere along the exterior edge of that bag, correct?
From the description, it was the opening of the bag, yes.
Okay. And if I look at them, I'm not going to do the 42% is the next one, but if we go down to 5%, so 10% of 420 picograms would be 42 picograms, correct?
Correct.
And 5% of 420 picograms would be 21 picograms, correct?
Correct.
The last time we were here, I believe you estimated that approximately one human skin cell has a little more than 6 picograms, correct?
Correct, I agree with that.
So maybe 6.5, does that sound about right?
Yes, somewhere around 6.
So if I'm to do the math correctly, there were 3 human skin cells that may have contributed to this front that could not be eliminated from Ms. Troconis's profile, correct?
Approximately, that's, yes, a fair statement.
3 skin cells, right?
Approximately,
Right, so that would be
Yes, so-
21 trillionths of a gram of DNA, right?
Well, Judge, I'm just going to object at this point. I don't think it's relevant because there's no indication that this DNA actually came from skin cells. So to make the leap that this is actually skin cell DNA, I think is a bridge too far at this point.
Well, court heard the testimony of the witness that 6.5, 21 divided by 6.5 is approximately 3. So there's redirect examination for clarification, but the objection is overruled.
That's correct, right?
Well, yes, I could say that approximately 3 skin cells would make 21 picograms in this sample, but again, it is true that I can't say that the DNA on this bag came from skin cells. It could have been another form of DNA.
Right, but all cells that you use are basically, on human cells, are the same size, correct?
Correct.
So it doesn't even matter if she sneezed, it's still only 3 cells, right?
Approximately, yes.
But when this was tested, it came to you as touch DNA, didn't it?
That's how the forensic biology described it in their paperwork.
And you...
I don't have that in front of me.
Right, but if that's how they describe it, you don't change it when you get it, right? Unless you test for some kind of different substance, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I just test it.
Well, Attorney Schoenhorn, it's about 2 minutes before 1.
Yep.
Since an exhibit may be displayed, perhaps we should do that after the luncheon recess.
That'll be fine, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we stand in our luncheon recess. We resume at 2 o'clock. Please do not discuss the case.